Welcome to the Values Exchange podcast. I'm Mike Cruz, your host, author of Saturday Every Day, private pilot, and CEO of North Texas Wealth Management, a firm dedicated to values-based financial planning. Today, we're talking about the value of preserving history. In a world that's obsessed with what's next, it's the company and people that honor our history, that really build loyalty, and the brands that last. And there's really nobody better to speak about that topic than CEO Dave Hall. He's the CEO of Moto Art and Plane Tags, and he's here with me. Dave, thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me, Mike.
So really and truly unique companies about, really preserving aviation history and the unique stories of each aircraft. In 2001, Dave and his business partner started Moto Art out of a garage just weeks before 9/11 with an idea nobody thought would work, transforming retired airplane parts into stunning functional art pieces. At first, they were told how they couldn't possibly make a living on airplane parts, but they didn't give up. Today, Moto Art's aviation-inspired designs, including the DC-3 Martini tables, DC-9 wing desk, and Get Bomb tables, have been showcased by major companies like Boeing, Red Bull, GoDaddy, and even showcased in the Sears Tower and more. In 2015, Dave expanded the mission even further by creating Plane Tags, collectible pieces made from authentic aircraft skin, offering people a way to literally hold a piece of aviation history in their hands. Under his leadership, Moto Art has documented over 100 historic aircraft, built a global community around the idea that preserving legacy and this history isn't just about honoring the past, it's about inspiring the future. So Dave, let's talk about the early parts of your company. And I got to tell you, I'm a big fan of what you're doing. I've ordered a countless amount of plane tags. The joke around my house, my wife teases me that she's like, you have so many of these tags, you could probably build an actual aircraft. And so, truthfully, it's a really just amazing concept. I'm a big fan. I've given them as gifts. My son has his own collection. And just wanted to kind of back up and talk about where this all started. So in 2001, I know it started in your garage, but where did the idea come from?
Well, it started before I had Moto Art. I worked for a architectural signage company that did theme entertainment signage. And I had met my old partner there, and basically we were making theme entertainment signage for like Disneyland and Universal Studios and Dodger Stadium. And one day this scrap aluminum guy came by our yard and had an old beat up propeller. And that's really where it started. We realized this propeller was a B-17 bomber, and we found out where he got it from. And a lot of these old propeller companies were just literally scrapping all these historical propellers for the aluminum because they just had no value anymore. So we started by taking these propellers and mirror polishing them, making them into a sculpture, and that's where the whole thing started. And our first show that we ever went to was the Barrett-Jackson in Scottsdale. And they were like big human lures. They were all mirror polished. We had candy-coated color propeller hubs on them. And that's really where the idea took off. And, we sold everyone that we had there, went back and literally on a napkin during breakfast one morning, we said, hey, let's make a wing desk. Let's take an engine cowling and make a reception desk out of it. And that's where it all started, was over breakfast one morning, and away we went.
Man, that's amazing. So tell me how you went from like that concept on a napkin to how did you actually go find the aircraft parts? And when you show up and you want to buy these parts or they give them to you, how did that negotiation go? And I guess people probably looked at you like, you're crazy or out of your mind of what in the world do you want all these parts for?
Right. We went to, we're close to the Mojave Boneyard, and the first attempt when I went up there, it's all a secured gate, couldn't get in. We're waiting for people to go in and out, ask them if we can come in and get a wing. And they thought we were crazy. But then we went to El Mirage. There's a public boneyard up there, and we went around and found a galley cart and found the cowling, and I had this gentleman who kept going, "What are you going to do with all this?" I'm like, "We're going to make furniture, functional art." And he kept calling me son and kid and son, and I was getting so upset with him. And he looked at me and goes, "Son, there ain't no way you're ever going to make a living off selling airplane parts." And I was so mad. I literally walked away from everything, and I'm like, "I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to make a living doing this." And that's how it all started. And we ended up going back there and getting material to kind of kick off the what we were doing, but it was difficult. No one believed in us with what we're trying to do. And when we started, I literally started out in my garage up in Palos Verdes, and everyone thought I was building an airplane. Every time my garage door came open, I'd have the wings and the propellers, and you could just see the neighbors trying to peek in, like, "What is he doing?" And we were making our first prototypes. And
Wow.
what really kind of launched us was, we had no money, but we had this really great idea, and it was really kind of like eye candy. And I was still working for the sign company, and one day I was waiting for the crane, and I'm reading a Maxim magazine, and I don't remember back in the heyday 25 years ago how big Maxim was. But in the very back of Maxim magazine, they had a little clip there, like what's hot and what's new. I'm like, what do you bet these guys would really dig what we're trying to do here? So I went and photographed the propeller and photographed the wing desk that we just made. And I took the 7 top editors of Maxim magazine, and I sent them all the exact same package, hoping that it'd create like water cooler talk.
Yeah.
And I got a call from the senior editor of Maxim within 2 weeks. And he said, "This is incredible." He goes, "This stuff is really beautiful." He goes, "How about a double page spread in Maxim magazine?" He goes, "Would you bring all this stuff to New York?" I'm like, "Oh my God." Right. And I was hoping for like a little insert. So that's what we did. We went, created all the stuff, went to New York. Maxim put a lot of money into it. They had this big studio where we set everything up, and it was during the day of Austin Powers. They had all these women coming out dressed up as Austin Power characters, and that's what literally launched our company. After that, Playboy called, Men's Journal called, Architectural Digest called, a lot of the airline magazines called, and the free press is what truly pushed us out of the starting gate to launch this company.
No, that's great. And, most people don't ever take that step. They have a great idea, but they don't take the step that you took, which was to start sending that out to the editors. They're afraid of that failure. They don't take that initial step. So, that's the catalyst that really, made Moto Art take off, pun intended, right?
Right. Right.
No, that's great.
Well, what the secret to us is we knew that we had to keep designing. We just couldn't have one design and keep trying to push it and push it. So we really tried our hardest to every month come out with something new. And you mentioned a couple of them, like the Get Bomb table, the DC3 Martini table. Every month we really tried to create a brand new design. And one of the things we did is we created a little photo bay in our shop. Well, we're in a shop at this point, and we would professionally photograph every piece that we did, knowing that we can make multiples of them. Right? We didn't want the one of a kinds. We wanted something that, okay, hey, we chose the DC-9 wing desk because it was the rear stabilizer of the DC-9. Well, they were just retiring all the DC-9s. We knew we had hundreds of them available to us.
Okay.
So we photographed the one, and it became a product line for us. And that's what we continued to strive for, was to do stuff that we could make limited edition series of.
Yeah. And did you have to actually purchase the materials at that point, or is that something they would just give you? They just saw it as scrap?
No, we certainly raised the prices on ourselves after all these years.
Right.
No, we certainly had to pay for it. I mean, just to remove the stabilizers was a production. But yes, no, nothing was ever given to us. And, some of the vendors I have now, I've known for 25 years. I mean, in fact, we have an acre of land in the Mojave Boneyard. We've gotten that far where they just gave us property up there. But everything has a price. My vendors are sometimes some of my best clients. We make them things, whatever it takes to kind of keep the wheels greased, to keep these relationships solid.
Yeah, so it sounds like you started with this idea of, the furniture, the propeller really prompted you. I guess now aviation has become a passion. You probably know as much about aviation as anybody else with 25 years of taking apart these airplanes that are historic and then telling the story. Do you consider
Right.
yourself an aviation enthusiast, an artist, a furniture maker, all the above?
I look back 25 years ago and I realized how much I didn't know of any of this, right? And I was kind of making it up as we go along. Look, as a kid, I was always making models, and what kid doesn't fly around the room with his arms out pretending he's an airplane? And I think that passion is in all of us, and I think that's what really drove it. And really, I always say no one learns more than I do about aviation and aviation history. That was really the help of plane tags. Even when I started plane tags 10 years ago, I thought I knew everything. And then you start doing these releases, and there's just so much aviation history out there that it's great. I mean, it's like every 2 weeks we have this crash course on this brand new plane and the manufacturer and when it was made and the routes that it took. It's been fascinating.
Yeah, so plane tags. I mean, you basically started with that concept. Talk to me about the first plane tag. Where did the idea come from, and how did it really take off?
And I don't mean to correct you. You were reading my bio there. We're now approaching almost 250 different releases on plane tags. We've been releasing them every 2 weeks. The plane tag idea came about when I was working with an old P-51 Mustang. I had a damaged air scoop. And I realized I couldn't just dispose of it or throw it in a recycling bin. I mean, this was truly aviation history. And so I took the oval from the Moto Art logo and I made myself a couple of them. And I'm like, you know what? Instead of a dog tag, I'm going to create a plane tag. And I had this full idea like mapped out. And I was actually going to do like a trading card with the, one of the pilots that made it, famous. And that idea sat in my pocket for about 5 years before I actually had the courage to actually launch something. And so finally, for Black Friday, I think 2015, we launched our first 5 plane tags to the collection. And it was like, it was an immediate explosion of sales because we had such a following of Moto Art that we had the built-in audience. And the thing about Moto Art, look, I love Moto Art, and I'd be the first to tell you, I couldn't afford it. It's very expensive. I mean, when you get these wing desks and you mirror polish and you got sometimes 200 hours into it, they tend to be a very expensive item. Everyone loves them. Not everyone can afford it. Yeah. So when we came out with plane tags, all of a sudden we had that affordable item that everyone could actually own a piece of aviation history.
Yeah. And so as you find these aircraft, how do you decide, one, which aircraft you're going to make into a plane tag? And then how do you actually uncover the history and the story of the aircraft?
Well, we don't really work with parts, right? We try to find the true derelict airframe or a fuselage to work with. Commercial, it's easy. They're almost a dime a dozen. They've been retiring commercial airlines. I've been by the hundreds for the last 20 years. But what we really enjoy is actually finding some of the more historical aircraft. And we're very fortunate that a lot of times it finds us now just through our work. We are constantly getting emails with people who have airframes that they could allow us to work with. At any given time, Mike, we have over 3 years of releases in our backyard waiting to be released.
Wow.
Where we've been collecting these airplanes and they're all sitting in baskets in the backyard with labels on them. And basically it's all about scheduling of what aircraft we're going to release. And what we try to do is we try to do a commercial aircraft, a World War II aircraft, general aviation, helicopters, because there's so many different fans. There's so many different types of aerospace.
No, that's great. And so, and looking at literally your background behind you, we can see all the plane tags hanging up there. Can you speak to exactly what are those tags behind you?
These are all my number ones. Whenever I do a new series, I always usually try to collect the very first one, serial number 001. And this is my board. The backdrop is actually a C-119 flying boxcar, hence why it's so flat.
Wow.
And it was a great display for me to use. And again, it's all my number one tags in the series of how we released them. So the very first one I had would be on the far left corner there to the latest, where we just came out with the Bell Super Cobra helicopter last week.
Nice.
And so this is my little board of collection of all the different tags we've done.
That's great. So, kind of rapid fire here. So, do you have a favorite tag? Do you have a tag that has the most history, most expensive? What's your best seller? Kind of tell me all about your tags.
Yeah, that's a big question. There's so many great aircraft. I always love the story of the plane. Like, we have a DC-6 that's in our lineup that actually was flown by the Monkees back in 1967 with Jimi Hendrix for the Summer of Love tour.
Wow.
Versus we have like a Boeing 720 that Ethiopian Airlines had it back in the early 70s, and it was hijacked. And one of the bad guys threw a grenade, and one of the passengers picked it up and threw it back of the plane. And all the good guys lived. And then Raytheon bought the plane and became part of the Star Wars program. Gosh, there's so many different aircraft. But the most requested one that we have is, of course, the SR-71. We probably have 5,000 people on the waiting list already for the next SR-71 release that we have coming up in
Wow.
July. The SR-71 is a very difficult one to get a hold of. And what we're working with, of course, are the stabilizers that were typically replaced before they actually sent the SR-71s to the museum.
Okay. So your fastest plane, also your fastest seller.
Oh, it flies off at Mach 3 speed.
Right.
The first stabilizer we had, it was kind of a funny story. We had a big promotion and a countdown, and I happened to be in Spain doing a teardown for British Airways. And so when the clock ticked 12 p.m. Pacific, it happened to be 8 o'clock in Spain. And I'm like walking down the street, and all of a sudden my phone just blew up. And with the time I pulled the phone out of my pocket, we'd already done like $250,000 in sales from the SR-71. And I called my shop. I'm like, take it down, take it down. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's selling too quick. Take it down. So after the first 24 hours, we took the SR-71 off the market. And then what we do is we'd use it for build up for marketing purposes. And we go out for a re-release and then another release, and giving people just a very small time frame to buy them. And then we take them offline again and then use it for the promotion for the next release.
Wow.
So now we actually have another SR-71 that actually found us. And we're very excited. We're going to be releasing it July 10th. And we'll probably do the kind of the same thing where we do a big build up to it and have it on the market for a short time, then take it down and probably do a re-release in Christmas.
That's exciting. Yeah. So where do you see Moto Art, plane tags going next? 5 to 10 years from now, have you thought about expanding beyond aviation? What do you see for the company?
Yeah, we're still pretty rock solid on the releases. I mean, there's still so much more that we want to do. We're really big in the United States. We have actually contracts with United, American, Delta, Alaska. So we have this great audience in the United States. We of course want to get more, in the Saudi Arabia, in India, find some different airlines down there to work with. But another thing we have up our sleeve is we're wanting to see these more and more at the airports. So we're looking at some pilot programs to do some kiosks where we can have them in different terminals. But to get to what you're saying, what else can we tag? Well, of course we can tag a lot. I mean, but we're still going strong with aviation. I hope to continue it for another 20 years.
Yeah, no, that's great. What do you think the competitive advantage for your business has been when you go tell the history of all these aircraft. There's not many companies that are really doing anything like what you're doing.
Well, I'm proud to say I've created a whole new industry.
Yeah.
Somehow I seem to make it look it easy. There's a Chinese company doing it now. There's a German company doing it now. I try to put my blinders on and just focus on what we're set out to do, which is preserve aviation history, tell the story of aviation. A lot of people who are trying to knock us off are out there for the quick buck. We're more long term and trying to document what we can. I'm honored that the Smithsonian, PMA Air and Space, Museum of Flight, some of the most prestigious museums around the world are now dealers. So that, says a lot about what we're trying to do. Of course, everyone has their favorites. Commercial, seems to be the most popular, where people try to collect all the livery colors. I'm passionate about the historical side of aviation history.
Yeah. No, it's really incredible. Again, I'm a big fan of what you've created. And so over the last 25 years, obviously there's a lot that goes into it. You've had a concept, you took the, initial risk, then it took some, additional courage to launch plane tags. What would you say your biggest business lessons, or even speaking to our audience as an entrepreneur? What if they have an idea, they think about starting a business? Everybody may think that they're crazy, but what advice would you have for them? And maybe what were those obstacles you had to jump over?
Well, look, I always say life is one expensive lesson. And I can't tell you how much money I've lost in making wrong directions and mistakes. And you can't be afraid to make a mistake. You have to really just push forward, and you're going to learn what works and what doesn't work. And just, again, not be afraid and just go for it. I always say ideas are cheap. Everyone's got a good idea, right? It's to act and actually bring it to the market that is probably the most difficult. And look, it's not going to be easy. When I started Moto Art, I went from, making $250,000 a year down to, okay, what's it take to survive, right? What do we have to do to pay the mortgage and buy milk? And so it was a really big financial risk when I launched it, but I really believed in the product and I believed in what we were doing. No one was doing it. It was groundbreaking. It was eye candy to all these publications that were looking for stuff to write about. So, as an entrepreneur, it's all about taking risks, but the rewards are pretty big.
Yeah. Well, it's paid off for you. And, we appreciate all the effort and what you've done in creating this entire industry. And as an aviation enthusiast, we really are excited about, getting to put it in our pocket, right? It's amazing to get a piece of, World War II history, or, I have a tag I got for my wife that's, Aloha Airlines. We got married in Hawaii. And so just, meaningful things. It's great. Such an amazing product. So.
Hey, one last thing I'd like to plug. We just finished up Charlotte Douglas International Airport, actually phase 1. If anyone has a chance, go through the airport right there at the new terminal where Delta Airlines is. We just installed an incredible MD-80 stabilizer, the full stabilizer. So when you're walking to the gate, you're literally walking under the wing of this aircraft. We just completed a 777 engine cowling information booth, and this thing is gigantic. Kind of a funny story about that. When I bought it, I didn't realize how much they wanted for it because it had such a big resale value. Another story. But also did a KLM 747 fuselage information booth. And right now they're trying to lock up. We have a beautiful Pan Am logo that we took off of 727 in an Eastern Airlines livery that they're trying to secure from us right now. But we're really proud of our work at Charlotte Douglas. So if you ever have a chance to go there, you can't miss it. You can actually jump up on the T-tail and take a photograph with it if you like. But it's pretty incredible.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. No, Pan Am Airlines always has that history. I actually have one of your Pan Am tags. It's one of my favorites. So.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
So, and you have the history of Delta coming up, right? I think 100 years.
Yeah. We just did the centennial with them. We made some incredible invitations made out of the skins for the gala that they had in March. We've rebranded all of our existing Delta tags with the centennial. Delta has been a great partner with plane tags. They were one of the first airlines that believed in what we were doing. We started by doing gift cards for them. Then we started doing the American Express cards that they had for the Sky Miles with American Express. One of the amazing projects we had with them is we made a puzzle for the profit sharing program one year, and the puzzle was made from a 747, and it was 92,500 pieces that were put together in this puzzle, all made from the 747.
Wow.
And what it was is every piece of the puzzle represented an employee at Delta Airlines. So,
Nice.
I'm basically couldn't thank Delta enough for believing in what we've been doing. That relationship has branched off to the other amazing relationships that we have with the airlines. With every commercial license tag that we sell, which is really all we sell now, 10 to 15% of it goes back to the family funds. So it's been a great way to sell it with these airlines. We'll go in and say, hey, United, over every tag we sell, let's give back to the United We Care Fund. And they love the idea. So far, we've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for these airlines for the family funds just by upcycling their aircraft and making luggage tags out of them.
Man, it's a really creative idea and exciting way to give back. That's amazing. So
Great,
well,
thank you.
Well, any final thoughts? Tell us if we want to buy a plane tag, how do we go do that? And any recommendations for somebody that's never owned one?
Yeah, well, very easy enough. Go to planetags.com. You'll see the extensive library of all the different tags we have. It's something I think it's affordable for everyone. I always say, be careful. It's a little contagious, as you say yourself, that it's not just like you buy one, you end up collecting them. And we actually have an annual tag festival that comes up this October where people come and they bring their tags and they buy and sell them and trade them. And we actually saw one of our plane tags sell. One of my first ones I did on eBay for $10,000, one tag, one of my earlier tags that sold that much. So it's been fun to see the aftermarket. We try, when you go to planetags.com, we try to keep the prices low because our customers are, they're this big and they're this big, right? It's amazing who's collecting these now. And they just don't buy one. They have hundreds of them now. So it's fun to see the aftermarket and what people sell them for and trade them. And again, they try to collect all the different colors and variants. And it's a lot of fun. And I always say no one learns more than I do about these. And that's what I think plane tags and what the museums believe in. They're advocates of it because it's educational. Yeah. And it's almost like an heirloom. You'll have these forever, right? We'll always be an A-10. It will always be a B-17 or always be an SR-71 because you truly own a piece of aviation history.
Yeah. Well, it's great. No. So, well, Dave, it was great, great speaking with you, and really appreciate all the insight that you had today about, what it really means to not only, preserve history, but just creating that loyalty and that trust in the brand and the exciting things and all the lives you impact in different ways from, your creativity and artwork.
Great, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks a lot. Well, thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Values Exchange podcast, Preserving History. Look forward to the next episode.